I welcome all the participants, the dignitaries to this session on the history of branding in India. Well, brands, what does this word incite within us? It incites a name, a service, and most importantly, a feeling or emotion. So whenever you looked at a brand, you must have had a feeling which made you connect with that brand. And that is why branding is very important in context of marketing. And why we chose history? Because history gives us perspective, history gives us plans, history gives us ideas. And we are looking at a future which is uncertain. We have a future which we imagined very differently while we were in January 2020, but the future is completely different while we talk today. So I welcome you all to this session with the speaker on the history of branding in India. I learned all this in an e-workshop that we had with Vivek sir along with few participants. And we will announce the details of this e-workshop also at the end of the session. And well, I won't take much of your time now because I'll hand it over the session and would love to listen to a brand name in branding himself, Mr. Vivek hattangadi.
Oh no. You're embarrassing me. You're embarrassing me.
I won't introduce you, Vivek sir. No, I won't do that. You are a brand name in branding itself, and I welcome you and hand over the session to take us through the history of branding in India.
Thank you so much. Today, we are going to talk about the history of brands. But it will not be fair on my part to start the session without acknowledging many people who have helped me. These names are in the alphabetical orders of the surnames. Mr. P.A. Bhatt, Mr. Ravi Bhushan, Mr. Prasanjit Chaudhary, Mr. Mohan Devkar, Mr. Prakash Naik, Mr. T. Narayan, and Mr. Bhavesh Vyas. Let us now hop into the time machine, which was sort of invented by H.G. Wells. And this time machine has a peculiarity. It can go forward and backward. And that maneuverability is there with this time machine. And so we are now going back to 1901. And 1901 was the year when India's first pharmaceutical company in India started. And therefore I want to say the history of pharma branding in India also started in 1901. And the person responsible for all this is Acharya Praful Chandra Ray. My pranams to Acharya Praful Chandra Ray. The first brand of Bengal, this is Bengal Chemicals as of today. We really don't know how it looked like in 1901. The first brand of Bengal Chemicals was Magnesia Cream. There's a curious thing about the products of the old days. Many of the old products, I would say more than 50% of the products of the olden days, they were for cleaning the toxicity in the body and throwing out. And even the first product, the first brand in India, the Magnesia Cream, was for that purpose. If you look at this Magnesia Cream by Bengal Chemicals, see the indications. In cases of constipation, the safe, gentle way, odorless, tasteless, non-habit forming, widely recommended for acidity and indigestion. I do not know how milk of magnesia or magnesium hydroxide can help in the indigestion. And also useful as a mouthwash. Magnesium hydroxide as a mouthwash and even a skin wash. You had some very great fun evoking brands during those days. The copy was really amazing. And this is the first another product from Bengal Chemicals, hemobean syrup, and that was hematinic. Another brand which was very, very popular by Bengal Chemicals, and it was an OTC product, Cantharidin hair oil. Cantharidin hair oil is available and popular even today, especially in the eastern part. People in the eastern part, particularly in Bengal, they are devoted to Cantharidin hair oil. And if you look at some of the beautiful girls from Bengal with lovely hair, it's all because of Cantharidin hair oil. Our time machine goes back now to 1842. 1842 was the year when the first pharma brand was introduced, and it is known as the Beecham's pills. Beecham's pill, again, as I said, was a product for purging the toxins inside the body, or in other words, it was a laxative. And see the copy, Beecham pills makes life worth living. This was the time even when photography was just evolving, and I think this is a drawing of the two people who are looking so happy because their body now is free from the toxic things which are there. Beecham is the name of the person who started this, and later he formed Beecham Pills. It changed names. It became Beecham Healthcare. It became Beecham Pharmaceuticals. Finally, it became Smith, Kline, and Beecham. And finally, this brand was discontinued. Beecham's Pills was discontinued in 1998. Had it not been discontinued, probably Beecham's Pills would have been a part of the GSK stable, and by now GSK would have put it on sale for some franchisee company to take it. The promotion of Beecham's Pills was very, very, very interesting. Today, we have Amitabh Bachchan, who endorses so many products. And Beecham's Pills was endorsed by none other than the poet of those days. And I'd like to show you a small poem. And later this poet, I'll tell you his name also, he was dubbed as the worst poet of that 19th century. The worst poet of the 19th century. And when you see these poems which were in praise of Beecham's Pills, you will understand why he was dubbed as the worst poet of the 19th century. See here what he writes. No matter what may be the body ills, the safest and the quickest cure is Beecham Pills. And for such diseases, nothing else can equal Beecham Pills. It is the advice of poet MacDonald. The poet's name was MacDonald, who was later on dubbed as the worst poet of the 19th century. There is one more poem by Beecham on Beecham Pills by the same poet, and now you clearly see why he was dubbed as the worst poet. He says, dislodge bile, stir up the liver, cure sick headache, for female ailments, remove the disease, and promote good health. This was the kind of promotion in the 1850s. One more product, again, a product for throwing the toxins out of the body, and that was milk of magnesia from a famous company, which is famous even today, very popular even today, is Philips milk of magnesia. Dr. Swati, there are a few people waiting in the waiting room. Can you just tell them to join on Facebook Live?
Yes, sir. We are putting the message.
Yeah.
In the waiting room.
Yes, sir. We have put the message so they can join. I have put the link also in the message.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now we take our time machine straight away forward to 1960. Why 1960? Because that was the time when my romance with the pharma brands began, though I knew nothing of what pharma is, not did I know what branding is. But I had a sort of romance with the brands. And how did I develop that romance? My mother, she belonged to a village called Bankikodla in North Kannada district in Karnataka state, which is around 30 miles or say 50 kilometers away from Karwar, south of Karwar. And Karwar, as you all know, is the Indian Navy's biggest base today. Bankikodla in those days was a small hamlet and mainly populated by the Adivasis. And my grandfather there, he was a very prosperous landlord. And people used to come, the Adivasis used to come, whenever they were sick, they used to come to him instead of going to a doctor. And for these people, my mother used to send medicines, or whenever she went to Bankikodla, she too took medicines with her. Going to Bankikodla was an adventure by itself. You had to take a steamer from Mumbai to Karwar, get down at Karwar, then go to Bankikodla village, crossing two rivers, and the rivers had no bridges. You had to take a ferry to cross from one side of the river to the other, that was Gingavali River. Or the second alternative was to take a train, go to Pune, from Pune you go to Miraj, from Miraj you take a train to Hubli, and then to Bankikodla. Oh my God. So in those days, it was really very essential for people to have medicines. And my mother, whenever she went to Bankikodla, she packed a trunk full of Dettol, Sloan's liniment, Benadryl, again castor oil, milk of magnesia, Aspro, and Edacin, and she carried it with her, or anybody going there, she gave it to them. And once I was blessed by one of the Adivasi farmers. He said, Amma, make your son a doctor and let him practice in Bankikodla. I did not become a doctor. I became a medical representative. At least my wife says I'm a half doctor. Okay, let us once again sit in the time machine and go to early 1900. Some of the famous brands of those days, Amrutanjan, which was an OTC brand. Amrutanjan is famous and available even today, but Amrutanjan company today has expanded in a very, very, very big way. Amrutanjan is into Infotex. Amrutanjan is also into bulk drug manufacturing, intermediates they manufacture. And only yesterday I saw on 19th September that the stock value of Amrutanjan is higher than that of Sun Pharma. So some of the old brands, they don't die, they continue to live. And one of the earliest products to be introduced, again, that was in the late part of the 19th century, that was by Felix Hoffmann from Bayer's, and he synthesized Bayer's aspirin. Bayer's aspirin was available in India for some time, but after the outbreak of the First World War between Britain and Germany, the supplies of aspirin to the British Empire, of which India was a part, was stopped. And here you see one of the packs of Bayer's aspirin. It says, export from Germany prohibited. Export from Germany prohibited. But the Britishers, they knew about the virtues of aspirin. what they did in retaliation, they suspended the patent of aspirin in the British Empire. And they asked some of the scientists to develop aspirin in UK or in Australia. And one scientist by the name Michael Nicholas, he developed aspirin by what we today call as the process of reverse engineering. So through a process of reverse engineering, he developed aspirin, aminosalicylic acid, acetylsalicylic acid, and he marketed it under the name Nicholas aspirin. But that was a dangerous thing to do, which he foresaw, because once the peace was restored, Germany would definitely take a lawsuit action against Nicholas aspirin. So he quickly changed the name to Aspro. He quickly changed the name to Aspro. And see one of the initial advertisements of those days. Aspro, it stops pain in minutes. And you'll be surprised to see this particular line. Aspro does not harm the heart and the stomach. My God. Somebody is saying that NSAID does not cause gastritis. I mean, these kind of advertisements will always be immediately banned by DCI or FDA. See some of the older advertisements of Aspro. Now, this is a very, very, very interesting ad. A couple on the beach, maybe the couple, the wife and the husband, they have fought with each other and they have got a headache. I don't know whether the wife has fought with the husband or the husband has fought with the wife, but somebody has developed headache, and the headline says, "You'll be thankful you took Aspro along with you." What is most important in your seaside suitcase? It is Aspro. Later on, when Nicholas merged with British Sharing and British Sharing came to India as Indian Sharing, British Sharing or Indian Sharing, they also introduced another brand of aspirin called Micropyrin. While Aspro continued to remain as an OTC brand, Micropyrin was a brand to be promoted to the doctors for ethical prescriptions. Why they called it Micropyrin? Because they synthesized and they developed it to microfine particles. After World War I, Bayer's aspirin came back to India. And see this advertisement. Whose picture do we see here? It is of Hoffman himself, who synthesized salicylic acid. And what does it say? Demand Bayer aspirin. He says, demand Bayer aspirin because Bayer aspirin is genuine. And when he says that Bayer's aspirin is genuine, he's sending a subtle message that Aspro, the aspirin of Nicholas, duplicate mal hai. Let us move a little ahead. See one more very interesting advertisement. One real aspirin, Bayer tablets aspirin. But in this advertisement, why I liked a lot, the scientist himself who discovered or rather synthesized acetylsalicylic acid, he is coming in that advertisement and telling the people Bayer's aspirin is the only genuine aspirin. This was another product, very, very, very popular. Ovaltine. It was a tonic food beverage, just like we have Horlicks or Bodvita today. Ovaltine was a product which was both advertised as well as talked to the doctors by the medical representatives of those days, and they said it contains malt, milk, and eggs. Ovaltine was a very popular drink with my mother. My mother, when she was a young girl, when she was around 8 or 10, she had typhoid fever. And in those days, chloromycetin was not available, or in fact, at that time, the antibiotics itself were not discovered. And that was the time she was sick with typhoid. And she tells me that it took her almost a year and a half to recover. And a kind doctor from Karwar used to come there every 15 days. He told her to take Ovaltine. And she said it's only because of Ovaltine she could regain the strength. The name Ovaltine also has a history behind it. The original name was ova maltin, and ova is from the word ovum. Ova is from the word ovum, meaning eggs. And because it contained milk, eggs, and malt, it was called as ova maltin. But somehow during the registration process, some silly clerk, he made a mistake, and the brand got registered as Ovaltine. This is how Ovaltine was advertised: malt, milk, and eggs. When you talk about malt here, basically it is an abbreviation for the maltose salt, which is the most easily digestible sugar. And the maltose give the drink a sort of sweetness. So in those days, most of the tonics, they contained malt. Like we'll talk about Ferradol later, we'll talk about Charcoferol. These are all which have malt preparations. And this is an Indian advertisement on Ovaltine. Two little kids from a posh area, I think it must be Malabar Hill or it must be South Delhi, and going to a retailer and asking for Ovaltine. A tin of Ovaltine, please. The children are saying it is the children's favorite. And here it says Ovaltine is good. Another very, very popular product of those days. And if it is advertised today also it will be popular because it is a product which can control cough and cold. And especially in these COVID days, people are looking for these kind of products. I don't know why WATERBURY'S has not taken any initiative on this. Anyway, that was a very, very popular product. And whenever I had cough and cold, my mother said, "Beta, WATERBURY'S le lo." Even when I became a medical representative and I was posted in Ahmedabad, she insisted that if I had cough and cold, I should take WATERBURY'S compound. And I loved taking WATERBURY'S compound for the simple reason it had an amazing taste. And at the same time, it gave a sort of small alcoholic kick and put me to sleep. And in Gujarat, dry Gujarat, WATERBURY'S, array. And I wish I always had cough and cold on a Saturday. Another very, very popular product of those days for muscular pains was Sloan's liniment. You want to hear the history of Sloan's liniment? Sloan's liniment was made for horses. The original Sloan's liniment was made for horses. This liniment was applied on the horses' legs when they were tired. So this was much before the invention of the motor cars. And whenever the tired horses were in the stables, this liniment used to be applied. And this Earl Sloanes, he was a stable keeper. Somehow he discovered that liniment, he discovered the formula, applied to the horses. And one day he applied this ointment meant for horses on somebody who was having pain, some human who was having pain. And he gave him relief. And from that day onwards, people started calling him Dr. Earl Sloane. And Earl Sloane became a very, very popular liniment known as Sloane's liniment. Anacin, perhaps the successor to Aspro. Not exactly a successor because it could never compete with Aspro, but in India it was marketed by Geoffrey Manners, which are then appearing in the part of John Wyeth. John Wyeth later merged with Pfizer. What was Anacin? It contained products which are banned today. Anacin contained products which are banned today, and it contained APC. APC tablets, APC pills were very, very popular, especially with the GPs. For any type of fever, any type of pain, APC was the first tablet to be dispensed. This is one of the old packs of Anacin, and see what it says. For temporary relief of pain due to simple headache and minor neuralgia. Oh my God, they were talking about minor neuralgia and aspirin and phenacetin and caffeine. Even I think Anacin is available today, but it only contains caffeine. I'm not sure. I inquired with a few nearby chemists and none of them kept Anacin today. I don't know whether it's still available. Faster relief from pain with Anacin. 2 annas, 2 tablets in the strip. 2 annas, which is 1/16th of a rupee or 12 paisa of today. Now, one very, very interesting ad of Anacin. This was in the 1950s. Like today, in the 21st century, jobs often mean tensions and headaches, especially during the closings. And even in those days, especially when person took up a new job, it had a lot of tension. And what did the advertisement say? Strong and trusted Anacin helps you over the bad spots. And you see people working in the office. One very interesting line which I found here was Anacin takes care of depression that comes along with pain and fever. I really don't know how this product, APC tablets, could be promoted in depression. Anyway, these things won't be allowed today. Today we have KOLs, we have DOLs, and even in those days we had kind of KOLs. And here is nurse Angela Fernandez. She's talking about the virtues of Anacin. So KOLs which are talking about today is not exactly a really new phenomena. It was there in the 50s also, when the nurses, they used to endorse products which were advertised. Then came 1939. Somewhere in 1935, Cipla started. 1939 was a very historic year for Cipla. Why was it historic? Because that was the year when Mahatma Gandhi he visited the office of, or the factory of Cipla, and he met the senior Dr. Hamid. They had a long chat, and Mahatma Gandhi pleaded with him, Dr. Hamid, you should now start preparing manufacturing products for India. India has to import from UK. Now the war will start anytime, and India will have a lot of shortages of medicines. And Dr. Hamid Senior, he immediately agreed and listened to what Mahatma Gandhi said, and Cipla started production of medicines in a very, very, very big way in the third or fourth year of its existence. And one of the products which was very popular on those days was Quinosole. Quinosole, which was quinine sulfate for malaria. The small company Cipla rose up. It remained India's top company for many years till the mergers and acquisitions pushed it to number 3. But if today you look at Cipla, and if you leave out those mergers and acquisitions, in terms of prescriptions, Cipla is still the number 1 company. Nevertheless, Cipla had the guts to take on the multinationals. And in the latter part of this early part of the century, when HIV, like today, COVID, HIV used to be in the news, HIV virus. And that for the time when the multinational pharma, they used to market at, my God, unbelievable high prices. And Cipla challenged Big Pharma and he said, we will give you HIV drugs at the rate of $1 a day. And he made it possible, and he challenged the Big Pharma. So we should be all proud of this Indian pharma. Some of our great leaders of the austere years, they have done many, many great things. Then came the discovery of 1928, the discovery of penicillin. The penicillin was discovered in 1928. Penicillin was commercialized only in the early 1940s. Today, whenever I'm talking to my brand manager friends during learning and development sessions, I'll always talk to them about bringing in emotions in their stories. Even the first advertisement of penicillin had so much of emotion. Here you see an army doctor bending over a wounded soldier. And what does the story say? Thanks to penicillin, he will come home. Thanks to penicillin, he will come home. So even in those days, the value of emotions was known to the pharmaceutical marketers. Let us have a look at the next slide. What do you see here? A soldier's helmet, a soldier's helmet, and penicillin injections. What does this signify? What does this say? All these are life-saving. The helmet and even the penicillin injection. When penicillin was commercialized, it was given out to many companies, and one of the companies it was given out was Glaxo. Glaxo manufactured crystalline penicillin, the purest form of penicillin. This is one of the very, very old packaging of Glaxo crystalline penicillin. And a little later, the packing became much more decent and lookable. Now let us once again hop into the time machine and go to 1947. 1947 was the year of our independence. Can anybody guess what is this? If anybody knows this answer, you can put it in the chat box. Okay, I'll tell you a little more about what it is. What is this? This is a distilling apparatus for cognac and alcohol. You can see a jar here. You can see pure alcohol, pure cognac coming out into this jar. It was called as a receiver. It has taken me how many words to describe this? Almost 12 to 15 words. Friends, can you tell me in one word what is the meaning of this apparatus? What is this apparatus called? Just in one word. You can put it on the chat box if you need. I'll give you 20 seconds. If you know the answer, put it on the chat box. And Dr. Swati, please help me if they put anything correct. Any answers?
Yes, sir, there are many answers coming up.
Can you just read out?
Rushabh has commented distillation, distillation decanter from Mr. Kiran Vyas, fragrance making by distillation by Mr. Rajiv, filter by Mr. Ujjwal Mitra, distiller decanter autoclave.
Oh no! And if you see the answer, you'll be shocked. The answer is alembic.
Oh.
This apparatus was called as alembic. And it is after this alembic, when it was formed, it was named Alembic, the company which we know of today. Alembic, when it started its operation, was mainly into distilling alcohol and tinctures. But after prohibition and when after independence, when prohibition was installed, they changed it to ethical and even pharmaceutical products. And the first product which was introduced by them is popular even today. Glycodine terp Vasaka. Glycodine is popular even today. Today we use the digital media for advertising. And you'll be surprised to see the kind of media they have used for advertising glycodine. In the olden days, before, whenever you purchased a radio, whether it was a transistor radio or whether you had an electric radio, it was mandatory for a radio holder to have a radio license. It was an archaic British law which continued up to 1974. And unless you had a license from the Post and Telegraph Department, your set was not considered to be legal, and it was mandatory to procure a license, and that license had to be renewed every year. This was the front page of that license, and this was the back page of that license. And in the back page, the advertisement of Glycodine terp Vasaka. Glycodine terp Vasaka stops cough. Look at this radio license, small little thing, about 3 inches by 4 inches. But see how many advertisements they carried. Open the first page. Sorry. Open the second page. Okay, where's the second page gone? This is the third page. The back page again. Every surface on the radio license was used for advertising. I'd like to show you a clip, a humorous clip on the advertisement of Glycodine terp Vasaka. Are you able to hear?
No, sir.
Oh my God. Dr. Satish, can you please help me what to do?
Just play the video, sir. Okay, sir. You will find an option of changing that. There will be 3 dots, sir. If you just
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
in that only you'll find that.
Share computer sound. Okay.
Yeah.
आज सत्संग होगा वाणी पर।
बाबा
बच्चे का नाम
वाह क्या नाम है। हो गया जाओ।
रस्तोगी।
यस मिस।
हाँ जी
कुछ नहीं।
इसका नाम होगा ग्लाइकोडिन।
उत्तम नाम। वाह 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 क्या नाम दिया।
खांसी की छुट्टी।
Even in those days, like the Shishyas of the Sadhus, there used to be sycophants. So, and one of the most powerful brands which was launched somewhere in the 50s is Becosus. Even today, after 70 years, this brand is amongst the top 15. It continues to be either 12 or 13 or 15 for many, many years till the anti-diabetic came, till the injection antibiotics came, insulin came. It used to be either number 1 or number 2 or number 3. That is the power of branding, my friends. And the promotion which they started in the 50s, the same promotion continues even today, but in different forms. Because even today is promoted as a companion to the antibiotics. Antibiotics cause a disturbance of the gut flora, leading to weakness, and for that weakness, co-prescribe Becosus. So that was an indication, that was the positioning of Becosus, and even today the same positioning. And today, although Becosus has an OTRS character, Becosus, the prescriptions are also very, very heavy. This, my dear friends, is the magic of strong branding. And another very strong brand which was introduced, this was during the 60s, was Crocin. Crocin was introduced somewhere in 64, 65 by one Mr. Gurudas Basurkar, who was later my mentor. He was then the sales promotion manager for the company, which was then called as Crookes Interfran. Later on, Crookes Interfran became Dufard Interfran, then it became Solvay, then I don't know what happened to it, but Crocin was sold to Smith, Kline and Bichon in 1996, and when Smith, Kline, Bichon and Glaxo merged, Crocin is now with GSK. But Crocin had GSK had another brand, a very strong brand of paracetamol, that was Calpol. So they decided to make Calpol for doctors' promotion, and Crocin was converted into an OTC brand. Let us once again sit on the time machine and take this time machine forward to 1974. Now, what is that magic 1974? (1974) was the year when I joined this profession. I joined this profession for a company called Carter Wallace Limited, a US multinational. You may remember a few days back on Facebook and LinkedIn, I had put up a post. Can you imagine a crow as a brand logo for a pharmaceutical product? Well, the first product of Carter Wallace in the world was a pill called Carter's Little Liver Pills. It was Carter's Little Liver Pills, and again that product was for throwing the toxins out of the body. It was a laxative, and apart from laxative, it could do many things. God knows what it could not do. Anyway, neither my trainer, Mr. P.M. Sapre, who later on became the president of Lupin and was in Lupin till he retired, knew much about the product. But that name, Carter's Little Liver Pills, fascinated me, and I wanted to find out what this Carter's Little Liver Pills are. And the curiosity continued till the age of the Google and the internet. And when I learned about Google and internet, I went and tried to find out what Carter's Little Liver Pills are. And this is what I saw. Carter's Little Liver Pills, it cures all liver ills. Once again, they are trying to make it poetic. Carter's Little Liver Pills cure all the liver ills. And what was the indication? Cures torpid liver, for a sallow complexion and a bilious headache. But be sure they are Carter's. There are many little liver pills available, but make sure you purchase Carter's Little Liver Pills. This was one of the very strong products of Carter Wallace, and they minted a lot of money. But I loved this crow. One can never imagine in the Indian pharmaceutical industry where you have a crow as a brand ambassador. You can call it a brand ambassador, you can call it a brand logo, whatever it is. But a crow, my God. As it is, we are always looking for something fair and lovely, my God. Anyway, the first product of Carter Wallace was a research product called Soma Carisoprodol, which contained, which was a muscle relaxant. It was a muscle relaxant, and the metabolite of that product was Meprobamate. And the metabolite of that product, Meprobamate, had a very strong anxiolytic action. And thus was born the first tranquilizer in the world from Wallace. Oh, before that, I forgot to tell you something very interesting about Carter's Little Pills. Brand managers who are listening, please take note. They introduced a term called Exhaustipation. They introduced a term called Exhaustipation. So what is Exhaustipation? It says it hits most of us at times. We wake up in the morning feeling tired, sore and headachy. That's exhaustipation, the tiredness caused by constipation. Exhaustipation, the tiredness caused by constipation. And what does this product do? Carter's Little Liver Pills gets that pipeline working smoothly and sweetly again, and you feel marvelous. As I said, most of the products of those days, they were for the toxins inside the body, they were the laxatives. Then I was talking to you about the first tranquilizer in the world, that is Miltown Meprobamate. Miltown was a revolutionary product because till then, a real genuine anxiolytic was not known. And when the patent of Milton ended, John White introduced it under the name Equanil. And Equanil was very popular in India. Milton came, rather, Cartwell's came to India somewhere in 68. By then, that time, Equanil had swept the market. But some of the people who knew about Milton, they were the great fans of Milton. And I still remember one doctor called Dr. Motibai Chaudhary. He belonged to a place called Visnaganj in Ahmedabad. And he used to prescribe over 25 to 30 boxes of Milton every month. And he used to complete my target for not only Milton, the Milton target was very small. He used to complete the target of many of the other products. And Milton was finally withdrawn. He was one of the saddest person in Gujarat. I also asked you one question on Facebook and LinkedIn. Do you know which is the world's first irrational fixed drug combination? Do you know which is the world's first irrational fixed drug combination? Sadly, it came from Cartwell's. Sadly, it came from Cartwell's. And that was a product called Deprol. Deprol, which you see here, was a combination of Meprobamate. Deprol, which you see here, was a combination of Meprobamate and benactyzine. It was called as benactyzine, which was an antidepressant. Later on, this combination, Meprobamate and benactyzine, they found that benactyzine, an anticholinergic antidepressant, was totally ineffective. And even US FDA banned this combination in 1966. And fortunately, this product did not come into India, but it still remains as a part of history as the world's first irrational fixed drug combination. India after that has seen many of the irrational fixed drug combinations like pentate sulfa, a combination of penicillin along with sulfonamide, and the most dangerous combination of all, oxygen, oxyphenbutazone with analgin. Fortunately, both these products are not available. Then came the 1960s, rather 1970s. Ferradol was one of the products which was both an OTC product as well as it was promoted to the doctors. It had both a OTC character and it was promoted to the doctors. And here you see an advertisement. Ferradol keeps a family healthy and happy. As a small child, I was weak, and my mother used to insist that I should be taking Ferradol. My father was very keen that I should join the army, and he too insisted, have Ferradol. And every morning, my mother, she used to shove Ferradol down my mouth. I don't know whether Ferradol gave me any strength or energy, but when I could see the happiness on the face of my mother, who was shoving down the Ferradol my throat, I felt very happy, and the happiness gave me strength. Ferradol was marketed by Park-Davis, which is today a part of Pfizer, and Ferradol, the people wanted to make it as a household name. And they used to run campaigns in schools. They used to serve what we call as Ferradol milkshake. Here you see the medical representatives of Ferradol or of the Park-Davis. They are serving Ferradol milkshake. And my friend Mohan Devkar, I think today he must be in his 80s, He says he has served at least 2,000 kids with Ferradol milkshake. And here, in those days, family planning was at its peak and vasectomy operations were very common. And all the vasectomy camps, these people used to, the medical representatives of Park Davis used to promote Ferradol. Here you see Mr. Mahmood Dekar along with the governor of Maharashtra of those days, Sadiq Ali. See the smile on his face to be along with the governor and taking an award. Ferradol became very, very, very popular, and that prompted Alembic to introduce charcoferol. Charcoferol initially was made from shark liver oil, and the name itself suggests charcoferol from shark liver oil. And the source of vitamin A and D in charcoferol was from the shark liver oil. And they promoted it in a very big way, saying that it was a natural source of vitamin A and D and not synthetic, which you find in Ferradol. Ferradol retaliated. Ferradol retaliated and said, charcoferol is not for Jains and other non-veg people. It cannot be given to them. Charcoferol then said that Ferradol had a heavy metallic taste and you had black stools along with Ferradol. Park Davis retaliated by saying charcoferol had a fishy smell, and the war continued for a very, very long time till malt preparations became obsolete. Today, nobody uses malt preparations. At the same time, charcoferol also introduced for veterinary use.